Cool. Right. Sorry about that. My computer just decided to crash again. Yeah. Thank you for those moments of the unseen. We'll go into our opening. So as we open up, the sun is beginning to set behind the big grey stone building of Kilburn Abbey. It's out towards the edge of the city, where it's a little more rural, or at least a little less developed. The shadows are long as you arrive. There is nothing blocking your entrance here. There is a big wall, but the gate is not secured. Even as you approach, though, all of you, Priyanka in particular, can feel just that sort of sense of the supernatural about the place. There is a sort of an intensity to this feeling of alienness, of demonic influence in the area that's very tangible now. But yeah, I guess I will ask, what's sort of your approach going to be here, and how are you going to go about sort of beginning this ritual?
I was thinking that, Lady Camila had that interaction with the abbot, and they had kind of agreed to work together on this. So I'm wondering if we do need to involve the monks, that the abbot would be part of that, trying to gather the monks for some kind of part of the ritual that helps them reclaim their memory of the atrocities that they've committed. So that's just one piece of it. So now we're not sneaking into the abbey like without. I think like maybe I'm thinking that maybe the monks or at least the abbot is on our side for the moment, and knows of our arrival and our plans to some extent.
Yeah.
Anyone have an idea what it looks like? You've got the book, Eloise.
I mean, I kind of like the idea of like forcing them into the confessional or something like that. And I don't know. Like, this is probably very anti-Priyanka, but like forcing them into the confessional and then basically just like, like compelling them to remember in some manner.
Power of Christ compels you. There's an exorcism, right?
Lure it in, then draw a circle around it with something to trap it while we perform the ritual to banish it. That's what the book says.
I mean, y'all, we have done this before. We have banished demons in churches. We got this.
So maybe, yes. So go ahead.
Okay, so as an alternate approach, like the one thing that stuck out to me, of course, I wasn't here for the session, so I don't know if this lines up with like the canon so far, but there's this idea of like, what was it, profaning sacred artifacts. So if there was maybe some way to like re-sanctify them, like something that stuck out to me was like, I just had this like really beautiful like image of like Fujisawa like fusing together a broken skull with like gold, like kintsugi style, and then maybe like Priyanka saying prayers over it to like lead the demon out or something like that. totally different ball game. Don't know if it aligns with like what y'all have established, but
Oh, am I here or am I meeting with Andrew tonight?
I think
yeah,
I think you said you were planning to meet with Andrew, but if you want to be here, that's fine. That's not a problem.
I'll still meet with Andrew, but perhaps we can say that Priyanka did in fact fuse together this Kintsugi skull for Spalakwa to take with them.
Sure thing.
So I'm imagining then what I'm well, there's a few different ideas on the table, but I think there's a trapping phase to the ritual and then a sanctifying phase to the ritual. Those are the things I hear. And that maybe Eloise maybe is in charge of the trapping phase, maybe, and Priyanka maybe in the sanctification, whether it's going to be with the bowl or whether it's going to be forcing the monks. I do like the idea of forcing the monks into the confessional, lining them up. Lady Camila can help keep the line in order. And she's pals with the abbot now, so assuming the abbot doesn't lose it. He's a very forceful personality as well. Oh, maybe he's the one. Oh, who's? Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the abilities that I do have with my rites of salt and smoke is to observe another place or time. I would be very happy to make the monks confront the atrocities that they committed by, throwing those visions into the baptismal fount and making them observe the things that they have done.
Oh, I like that better than, because the confessional is one-on-one, but we could gather them all around the font.
Yeah, that sounds good. So yeah, I think you will be met at the gates by the abbot Claudius, who, as I said, is very large man, very tall, very bulky, and he will say, "Thank you for coming. I've gathered the brothers and sisters as you requested. If you would come with me and well, you can do what it is you need to do."
Professor,
oh, sorry. There, go ahead.
Thank you, Abbot. We will need to gather all the brothers and sisters in the chapel around the baptismal font. Professor, are there any preparations that you need to make to lay the trap?
No, I don't want any sign of what we're doing to it might see what's coming.
Very well. They are wily creatures. No doubt they will show themselves as soon as we begin the sanctification ritual. Miss Priyanka, do you need anything other than the presence of these fine acolytes, novices, sisters, and brothers?
Priyanka just shakes their head and says, "No, I can feel the forces in this chapel moving very quickly. So I believe that we should make haste towards beginning the ritual."
Onward.
Yeah, and in fact, Priyanka, as you say that, you can feel a creature or a mind attempting to contact yours. It's powerful, it's clearly demonic. It is tugging at your baser impulses. And I would like you to make the night move here to resist the influence of this creature as it attempts to possess you. This is going to be a roll with sensitivity. That's the word I was looking for. As it is obviously a supernatural creature. I am going to ask you, though, to roll with disadvantage due to most beloved, as this creature clearly wants to consume you, as it were. What are you afraid will happen if you lose your nerve or your will falters here?
I am afraid that the demon will consume me and possess me, and lock me within a prison in my own mind to work its agenda through my body and my power.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's worse than that, that it will turn its attentions upon your companions with the supernatural strength that you possess. So yeah, excellent. If you would like to make that roll.
Okay, so that's a 4 and a 2 are the lowest, so that's a 6 plus the 3 that I get from my sensitivity, 7, 8, and 9.
Excellent. So yeah, if you want to describe how it feels or how it looks as you throw off the influence of this demonic entity.
I hear its voice in my head. I hear it whispering at the doors of my mind, knocking to be let in. It's a familiar voice to me, layered over the very new demonic voice of a spirit I've not encountered, but still bone-chillingly similar to a voice I grew up hearing. I feel the cold fingers of the spirit trying to worm its way into my blood, trying to put my body on like a suit, and I wrench away from it violently. There's a spasm that goes through my body if anyone were to be observing me in that moment. And I start to cough again, and that same black ichor that we saw earlier falls into the handkerchief, and I tuck it away again. But I close my eyes and I chant over and over. It's like, I am my own thing, you shall not have me. I am my own thing, you shall not have me. And though the knocking of the door is still there in the back of my head, I know that the door shall remain locked.
Excellent, excellent. I think I'm going to ask you to take a condition, and I think that's going to be, let's call that, tell you what, we'll go with the locked door. I think that makes sense. And we'll switch back over to Fujisawa. So Fujisawa, whereabouts are you going to try and track down Baird?
I think Fujisawa's plan is to have him over to Hargrave House. So if need be, she probably would have gone through. He seems like the type that Beryl Staves, her hooligan contact, might know. So she would have gone to Beryl to find out where she can contact Andrew and invite him over for her dinner tonight.
Yeah, sure thing, sure thing. If you'd like to make your move with the Hargrave House informals, and we'll see how that goes.
Sure. And that's with presence. Okay, yeah. That's 12.
12, excellent. So on a
10 plus, they show up right away and do as you wish.
Yeah.
Oh, on a 12 plus, they also tell you something they've seen. Keeper will give you helpful information or a clue, their choice.
Yeah, so I think how this looks is when you meet up with Barrel Staves, he will he knows where Baird can be found. He is he has a nondescript kind of it's like he's rented a sort of small like warehouse workshop type building, sort of in the somewhere along the river, and I think the information that he's going to give you sort of on like specifically is that the reason he knows about Baird's where he is and kind of what he's up to is that Baird has been recruiting people recently, mostly soldiers or ex-soldiers, but anyone who is kind of skilled and willing to commit violence, essentially. He will tell you that Baird can be found at this warehouse, but it has essentially been converted into a almost like a garrison barracks type building. So there will be quite a few other men there. So he advises caution. He says obviously that he'll be willing to come and offer his aid in protecting you should the need arise. But yeah, he says that's probably the best place to get in touch with Baird. And yes, essentially the helpful information you get is the knowledge that he has these other people supporting him and working with him. Otherwise, you almost certainly would have been ambushed on the way to meet with him. But you can now go in with a bit more pre-planning, as it were. And we are going to switch to the next unseen quickly, and then we'll pick things back up again.
Could we take a quick break before we do that?
Oh yeah, sure thing.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, no worries. We'll just take quick sort of 5 minutes break, and then pick things up again. See you all back in a few minutes. Yeah, brilliant. So yes, we'll kick back in with our next unseen. So I'd say a young girl sells bouquets outside the flower hall, made up from the leftovers of the day's trade. Who comes to her to buy, and who are they taking the flowers to?
So I imagine there's a woman, an older woman in mourning, of humble means, but all dressed in black, and she's come to the little girl, and she's in her palm. She's going through just a small amount of pennies that she has, and she picks a bouquet that has chrysanthemums in it, and it's to lay at the recent grave of her husband, who just passed a couple of weeks before. And the bouquet that she gets is pretty bedraggled. The flowers look like they've really been squished and mushed and browning up upon the edges. But as she gathers up the bouquet from the little girl and walks down the street, she holds it close to her chest, and you can hear her praying under her breath, as if the bouquet were almost like a rosary that she's going through the petals of it, with prayer. And then she just walks down the lane off into the distance.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So, as you proceed into the church, perhaps a little shaken, but otherwise still keeping it together, you can see a gathering of monks and nuns stood as directed around the baptismal font. They look nervous. There's not loads of them here. This isn't like a huge congregation isn't the right word, but whatever you call it anyway. There's probably a couple of dozen or so people here. But yeah, there is that air of anticipation going around them. Some of them are fretting rosaries, others are muttering prayers. But as you enter, the candles lit around the room sort of flare up brighter. There's just that ever so slight yellowy greenish tinge to them, as if they were burning gas, and you can all smell the scent of sulfur in the air. But for the moment, there doesn't seem to be any overt threat. The demon having conducted its initial foray. What are you going to do?
So has the demon arrived? Is it?
It's definitely present. Yep.
Then I guess it's Eloise's turn to trap it. I think Eloise opens a box and grabs out a large sack of salt, and without looking towards the font, just cuts a hole in the corner and starts walking in a circle around the whole gathering, drawing a circle of salt.
And I imagine Lady Camila is mostly doing traffic management here. Her and the abbot are reassuring the monks and nuns. Please do stay within the circle of salt, and all will be well. Let yourself take solace in the waters of the baptismal font. There you will find your connection to God and your Savior. I'll leave it at that.
Excellent, excellent. Professor, I think I'm going to ask you to make a night move with sensitivity to trap this demon within the circle. Don't think your condition isn't going to apply, so you won't be rolled with disadvantage.
So I will mark my book of demonology, since that's where I got my
excellent. And yeah, what are you afraid will happen if you lose your nerve or fail here?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of if I slip for a moment and glance in, the demon will notice me drawing the circle and will turn its attention on me to stop me from completing it.
Yeah, I think it's worse than that. Having seen that, you people of Hargrave House are made of sterner stuff. I think it's going to turn the monks and nuns against you. But yeah, if you would like to make that roll.
It's a 6.
A 6. Okay, so I think as you begin making your protective circle, and as I said, as Lady Camila is addressing the monks and nuns, there is just a sudden flitter of air. The salt is scattered across the floor of the church. The candles gutter out, and then relight again a few seconds later. But now they are properly kind of like a sickly green color as they burn. And as one, the assembled monks and nuns will turn towards you and say, and it's an odd effect because it's almost like they are harmonized in plain chant as they speak, as they each speak with sort of one voice. And they say, well, mortals, it does look like you have made this interesting. And they will begin advancing towards you. Unless, of course, you want to spend a mask and avoid that.
It does seem worthy of a mask, yeah.
Excellent. We'll come back to that in a moment.
Is there a threat mask for this one?
I don't. Oh no, there is actually. Yes, there is. There is the mask of sacrilege, I think. So yeah, if you wish to mark that, you certainly can. Yes, the mask of sacrilege.
Yeah, let's do that. That
Excellent.
makes sense.
So the mask of sacrilege is. Each hunter narrates a possible future in which they succumb to a sinful act, thereby endangering their health and or the safety of others. So we'll pick that one up. when we come around to our dawn phase shortly. And yeah, and then we'll flick briefly back over to Fujisawa. So
yeah, I think since Fujisawa knows where to find Baird, we'll see her sort of rock up to these makeshift barracks in a handsome cab with barrel staves at her side. And she'll have the cab wait while she retrieves Andrew. We'll see her just like kind of walking up to the door of this residence with Beryl beside her, looking very intimidating, almost like a bodyguard. And she'll simply knock and she'll ask for Andrew as though she's making, you know, a formal invitation to him.
Yeah. The door will be opened by a young man in sort of nondescript looking clothing, who will seem a little surprised, but sort of go back inside, and will return a few moments later with Andrew Baird, who will come, and I think he will stand in the doorway. He won't cross it out yet, but he'll say, "Well, miss, I didn't expect to see you coming around here. Is there something I can do for you?"
Yes, I apologize for the strange timing of this request, but I would very much like it, Mr. Baird, if you would join me at Hargrave House for dinner. Alone.
I'm afraid to say a little busy at late, miss, but maybe I can at least join you for a wee spot of tea, if nothing more than that.
Yes, I won't take up too much of your time.
Very well. Then I can accompany you now, if that would suit you.
She smiles politely, and I imagine Beryl's there, like cracking his knuckles. And he says, like, "Yes, that suits me just fine. There's a cab waiting outside."
And he will nod and follow you into the cab. And we will go to our next unseen, which actually I believe is yourself. And this is what scenes of high drama do we see play out on the stage of the Royal Opera House? And how do we see those same tragedies and romances play out on the street outside?
I think that the opera being performed in the Opera House tonight is the French opera Thais. And we see a shot of the performance, this like the scene in which a priest character with this very deep, like rolling baritone voice is singing a solo. The words are very pious as he attempts to convert this the titular courtesan Thais to Christianity to save her soul. But in the performance, there's a sort of undercurrent of lust in the way that he sings at, and the way he leers at the courtesan, this like obsessive focus he has on her. And we get a sort of split screen effect of a young couple outside promenading in the garden, or promenading like through the stalls of this like marketplace in Covent Garden. And both halves of the couple are behaving very primly and properly. They're broaching only the topics that would be approved by polite society. But as this like baritone solo continues on the soundtrack, we can see that the way the young man's eyes linger on his companion's corseted bosom, and the sort of devilish smile he gives her whenever she looks away toward a flower stall or at a particularly pretty dress on a passerby. And at the song's crescendo, as on the stage, the priest is looming nearer to the courtesan, even as he tries to contain himself. We see out in Covent Garden, this young man's lust overtakes him, and he pulls his companion into a shaded corner, perhaps where the merchant stalls are beginning to close for the night. And he pulls her in for a fervent kiss.
Excellent, thank you. So back at the church, I think we see, obviously we do not see the scene going quite as badly wrong, but I think Alois, as you complete the salt circle, you can feel the power of the demon pressing back out against it. Several of the monks and nuns sort of drop to their knees. If you start having nosebleeds, you can feel sort of the pressure in the presence of this creature reaching out. So I think inside the circle of salt, it begins to manifest physically for the first time. It's a tall, shaggy-haired beast with it has sort of the classic like cloven hooves. It has a long, thick tail that whips around, curling horns coming out of its head. And I think the complication is just going to be you have a very you have contained it for now, but your warding is not going to hold for long against it. You can already feel it beginning to push back against the bonds. And it says, "Your tricks will avail you naught, mortal. You will all come to me, and you will come willingly, whether you yet know it or not." And it paces in the circle, lashing out with its claws at the air, sort of around it.
Ignore the monstrosity. Focus on the baptismal font. Your savior you will find there. And she looks at Miss Priyanka with a hopeful expression on her face.
Yeah. I think I'm going to ask you to make the night move, please. Lady Camila, as you attempt to kind of, keep the monks and nuns under control. So if you could make that with presence, please. And what are you afraid will happen if you lose your nerve or fail here?
I'm thinking that these people are going to stampede and run out, and we are going to have no recourse, and then the demon's going to break out of that container and kill us all.
I mean,
I'm sure it'll be worse than that.
Honestly, actually, probably not much worse. That does sound about the way things are going. I think the thing is, yeah, that it will in their panic, yeah, they will. One of them, will break the circle, releasing the demon, and yes, it will. It will obviously take you all down as its full power is unleashed. But yeah, make your
and then I want to say that I want to use my jet funerary jewelry as because it's a ward against evil influences. So all right. So
excellent.
Where did I put the dice roller? I was here a second ago. There it is. I'm just gonna do the 3 dice and then I'll add the +2 afterwards. Oh my. That is a failure. With a roll like that. That's a 6.
Yeah, I think it looks very much as described. The the panic amongst the monks and nuns has reached a fever pitch at this point, and they break and flee. I think one of them they sort of several of them sort of taking a words to heart, run and charge and sort of grab at the and try and sort of ladle water out of the baptismal font, and as they do, a trail of it just trickles across the floor and starts to dissolve the salt. There's a brief flare up as the demon backs away from the water, but then as the salt circle breaks, you feel that tension in the air release. It surges forwards and slams Lady Camila sideways into one of the big stone columns inside the church before turning its attention towards Priyanka. Unless, of course, you want to spend a mask.
I think I will go ahead and spend a mask on that.
Yeah. And I think you are able to kind of instill some calm amongst the clergy here, but even as you do, you just feel those slight doubts starting to play at the back of your mind, perhaps just because of the situation, or perhaps because of the baleful influence of the demon. But I am just going to give you the condition doubt or doubting, whichever makes more sense. And we will turn back to Hargrave House. You have arrived back there, Fujisawa. Baird is sat across the table from you, drinking tea. And I will leave things over to you.
Yeah, I think while she was out fetching Baird, Fujisawa would have instructed Reginald and Periwinkle to sort of set the mood. So I think they're drinking tea and eating maybe little biscuits off of Hargrave House's best china. The dining room is candlelit. We can see the candles flicker slightly with like a kind of bluish tinge of the flame as this haunted wind flows through the room, though the windows are closed. And Fujisawa takes a prim sip of her tea. Thank you for joining me, Mr. Baird. I think we got off on the wrong foot in our first meeting. We were so concerned with our employers' goals that I think we failed to see an opportunity for solidarity between us. I think we're not so different.
Perhaps, miss, perhaps you are right, but I'm interested what it is you think we can come to an arrangement on. I am working towards something in which I believe, and I do not know what else you have. And I just kind of gesture around at the room, sort of taking all of Hargrave House.
I understand, and I admire your loyalty to Lord Falkenberg. But I want to ask you sincerely, these ideals that you believe in so fervently, are they your ideals or are they your master's?
I believe in what Lord Falkenberg is working to, if that answers your question. He is a visionary. He envisages a world very different to this one. And that is a world I would like to see. There has already been too much death and destruction wrought for no reason other than greed. And I want to see an end put to those who pursue that. So yes, I do follow the man, but I follow him because I believe in what he is leading me to, unlike those I have followed in the past.
That's precisely my point, Mr. Baird. You don't have to follow anyone. And I think Fujisawa at this point, she has her first edition English translation of the Communist Manifesto that she puts onto the tabletop and slowly slides over to Andrew. I've been reading this text, and I'm not a scholar. I can't claim to understand everything that Mr. Marx has written here, but this line did strike me. She opens it, and there's like a line that's like underlined in ink. The proletarians have nothing to lose but their chains. They have a world to win. My interpretation of that is that you don't have to fight Lord Falkenberg's battles for him. Or you don't have to fight anyone's battles for them. You can have your own vision that you pioneer.
Excellent, excellent. So I think I'm going to call for the night move here. Just to set expectations up front, I think it's unlikely that Baird is going to do a complete about face right here and now. But I think if you succeed here, you will have planted seeds of doubt in his mind that you might be able to exploit later on, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was hoping for. Anyway.
Yeah. But it will obviously be a roll with presence. What are you afraid will happen if this goes wrong or you lose your nerve?
I think given Fujisawa's current mindset and her consumed with lust condition, I think she's afraid that Andrew will take this the wrong way. He'll think that this entire setup is a pretense for something less noble.
Yeah. And I think it's actually it's worse than that. And I think it's the fact that he sort of maybe got that impression from the beginning, and is using this whole conversation as a pretext to kill you and set a trap for the rest of Hargrave House when they return.
Okay. I will mark my Communist Manifesto.
Very fair.
Do you think my condition has a bearing on this? Or
no, I don't think it's going to disadvantage
cool.
you on this roll,
no. Okay. Let's do 3d6. Okay, that's 8 plus 2, 10.
10. I think he will smile and say, I didn't have you down for a rabble rouser, Miss Fujisawa. But thank you for your generous present. And he will pick up the book and give you kind of a nod. I'm afraid I must be taking my leave of you now. It has been pleasant to have a wee chat, though. I'm afraid I am going to be very busy for the next day or so, but perhaps we can meet again in the future, depending on what the future brings.
Fujisawa nods. I hope so. And just remember, Mr. Baird, that we are our own people. They can't have every part of us, or we'd have nothing left to ourselves. Have a good evening.
Excellent, thank you. So we're going to have our last, and apologies, I don't know this is going to be putting you on the spot a little. We're going to have our last unseen, and then we will return to resolve things at the Abbey. So in a gin palace later in the evening, sex workers and actors sit side by side, enjoying a drink after a busy night. How do we see the kinship they feel for each other?
In this one particular dive, it's just after closing time, so the lanterns have been turned up so they can do a final cleaning there's one rowdy table still in the back who has been cut off but hasn't quite moseyed their way out yet. And you see that it is a chorus line from the performance at the Royal Opera House that we saw earlier. You see some of them are still streaked with their makeup and looks practically indistinguishable from the ladies of the night who share a table with them. And they have pooled their money to get a big heaping plate of food that they're all sharing, and they're all passing around a bottle of wine, you know, sharing it, drinking straight from the bottle, occasionally whispering secrets into each other's ears and laughing uproariously as they celebrate the closing of the evening. There's a bit of melancholy over the scene, just because it's the last showing of that particular play at the opera, and the girls who didn't find a John to take home and have a warm place to sleep or get a little bit of extra pocket money for a room are wondering where they're all going to end up for the night. But they eventually wander their way out of the restaurant in twos and threes, some of them parting ways, some of them wandering off together into the night out of either companionship or camaraderie. And the last thing that we see is that of all their dishes and all their cups, there's no difference between any of them. They all live their lives one night at a time, and they do it together.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So yeah, Priyanka, the demon is mostly contained. The nuns and the monks are sort of calming down a little, which in turn is kind of helping remove some of that fuel towards the demons that were. How do you conduct this ritual and bring the thing to a close?
So Priyanka, probably with the help of Lady Camila, actually climbs into the baptismal fount and stands at the edge of it, ankles submerged in the water, and starts to pray. Looks at the demon square in its eyes and says, "Such unclean things are not allowed in this house. I will make sure that those who sin are cast away." And we actually take out the razor rosary that we had before, and we wrap it tightly around our hands, and we start to pray, and then we trigger the contraption on it so that the barbs that are hidden within it cut into our skin, so that the blood actually drips down into the baptismal font. And I invoke the very dark spirits that I have just sacrileged to show the members of the church their sins so that they may repent them.
Excellent. So yeah, this sounds this is your rites of sword and smoke, I assume. So if you would like to make that roll with sensitivity, please.
And then since I used an artifact, an item from my personal quarters, I also roll with advantage.
That's correct. Yep.
So I have a 5 and a 6, which is an 11, plus 3 from my sensitivity is a 14.
Excellent. So yeah, if you would like to describe, this will obviously succeed. With great effect. But if you'd like to describe how it looks as you banish the demon.
I think that what happens is that the waters start to glow brightly, and then this kind of it's almost like sunset on uneasy waters, where it's just glistening and roiling, and the light that is coming from the water shines on the faces of all of the brothers and sisters of the congregation, and you can see in their eyes as they suddenly remember the horrific things that they have done. and each of them falls to their knees and starts to, pray for forgiveness and absolution. And as this, unbearable weight falls upon them as they must reconcile with the horrible things that they've done, but as they start to do so, the demon almost seems to start to crack, and like noxious sulfuric yellow vapors start to pour out of it with every prayer that one of them says, until it basically bleeds out and shatters in a billowous yellow smoke.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So we'll wrap up the night phase there. We'll move into a very brief dawn phase. We collect rewards if a threat was resolved, which it was. So the rewards that you have are the corpse that was walled up in the abbey, add it to your personal quarters. A desecrated Bible, add it to your personal quarters, and then 3 instances of a memento from the investigation. Yeah, I'll go back around the other way this time. So, Lady Camila, what reward would you like from this investigation?
So the corpse only works with the demonic insight customer, but we didn't get that one.
That's
right?
correct. Yeah,
Okay,
it's just sorry, it's just a regular personal quarters item. If you don't have that move, yeah.
I am gonna. I think I should leave the desecrated Bible for somebody else. I'll just take a memento. If Fujisawa, would you be willing to? Well, actually, you give me mementos all the time. Priyanka, would you give me a memento from the hunt?
I think that the memento that you get from Priyanka is actually the bloodstained rosary that I used to vanquish the thing. It no longer, can be used as like a razor weapon or anything like that, but it holds significant sentimental value.
Thank you, my dear.
Excellent, thank you. And Fujisawa.
I will also take a memento. I'll ask Lady Camila to tell me what it is.
I guess I'll have to keep going with the same theme because it's just dominating my head right now. And so I'll just say that it's a vial of holy water tinged slightly, ever so slightly, with the blood of Miss Balakwa.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. And Priyanka.
So, sorry, I feel like Jose just asked this, but I just want to clarify. So since the resolution was done through the driving the demon away, there is no way to use the demonic insight. It's just a,
That's correct.
Okay.
It's just a kind of it's just the preserved body of the girl is just a personal quarters item.
Well then, I think I'll take the desecrated Bible. That sounds very on brand for me.
Yeah, fair. Professor, how about yourself?
Priyanka.
All right, you're asking for a memento?
Mm-hmm.
There is a there's a scorched piece of marble from the floor where the demon scraped into it as it was dying, that when you look closely has all sorts of strange demonic symbols carved into it, almost like a footprint, but with like some sort of ancient script put into it. And obviously they must replace that, but we were able to obtain it for our personal research. So you have a demon marked piece of marble.
Awesome, thank you. Cool. So the next thing is dawn questions. So I believe, and just in the interest of time, I think the only person that this is relevant to currently is Priyanka, because I think everyone else has. Oh no, Fujisawa, you haven't apparently. Oh no, so you did, didn't you? But you were just holding off on it, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. No worries. So yeah, Priyanka. Did Hans answer a question? Not tonight. Did the Hans resolve a threat? Yes, obviously. Did you experience an echo in the night?
I did. I mirrored the I did it backwards. I mirrored the night scene to my earlier memory when I did the actors and the sex workers.
Yeah, excellent. And did you perform a ritual? Yeah, obviously.
I sure did.
Sadly, we didn't get any sexy times this time around, but no worries. Awesome. So we have.
Should we do Memory as a Servant?
Yeah, I was going to say, yep. If you want to do Memory as a Servant.
I think that Fujisawa was able to get her hands on a lock of Andrew Baird's hair, which I will give to Miss Balakwa. Perhaps there's a ritual to be done with it.
Excellent. That is cool. I like that. So we'll do our Janus mask quickly. So I know we obviously have the Mask of Sacrilege for everyone. Did you mark another Mask of the Past, Lady Camila?
I did.
Yeah, cool. So I don't think anyone else did, if memory serves, but cool. So yeah, so the Mask of the Mask of Sacrilege is, as mentioned before, no, that's not the right box. Each hunter narrates a possible future in which they succumb to a sinful act, thereby endangering their health and or the safety of others. So let's put that in chat as well. So if everyone wants to be thinking on that one, and Lady Camila, if you either want to answer that or your Mask of the Past as well, first, that's cool. But yeah.
I could do the Mask of the Past.
Sure.
While people think about the other one. I'll try to keep it short. So this is narrate a flashback to the recent past, showing how the village, this is again the girls' village, still suffers the consequences of the explorers' occupation. I think we see that hut by the stream where Lady Camila and the girl used to work together. We see it in kind of in ruins, cracked pots, and the roof is caved in. And it's nighttime when you see this, and the air is kind of heavy with the stifling heat of summer. And outside of the Mimo, the communal house, its roof is also collapsed and left unrepaired, with no one with the capacity or energy to fix it anymore. And there are some women, very somber, speaking quietly to one another around a cooking fire. And they're feeding the men, who are clearly imbecilic still and drooling and staring off into space, looking puzzled. If there's something important that they can't quite recall. And then one of the men, older men, one of the elders, becomes agitated and begins flailing his arms. And he strikes the woman across the face, one of the women across the face, in his frenzy. And then he vomits and coughs uncontrollably. And a young boy who's in the circle runs off with wide eyes, and we hear him leaning against, we see him leaning against a tree and hear his ragged breathing, and we hear the sobs of the women in the distance. I'll stop there for that one.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, does anyone have any thoughts on the Mask of Sacrilege?
There is a hazy, dreamlike vision of the final confrontation with Lord Falkenberg. And just at the moment when it seems as though the hunters have clenched victory, there's an evil glint in Priyanka's eyes, where they feel an overwhelming sense of pride surge through them. That, after all, why shouldn't they be one of the ones to usher in a new world order? Why shouldn't they be one of the ones to supplant the plans of a very fragile, very soft kind of mastermind who just assumed that he would get his way? And why should they not be the one to stand in that place instead? They are more powerful than he is. They are more in tune with the ways of the world than he is. They have already laid all of the path needed to bring about such a world, and all that we need to do is step into the role. And so, just as all of the others believe that we will vanquish this evil and put London back to rights, we take our rightful place upon a new throne and use our forces to obliterate everyone and everything that stands in our way. And we reinvent the world where we are the ones who set the rules.
Excellent, thank you.
I think we see the silken bed sheets in Priyanka's quarters, and they're roiling and rippling along with the twisting of Fujisawa and Priyanka's pale bodies atop that. And there's some like dark entity slithering anxiously between them. And we see like Priyanka's eyes and the sclera gone entirely black as this slithering entity begins to suck the life force out of Fujisawa. You see Fujisawa's ribs like shifting under her exposed skin as her body like twists and like almost constricts, leaving her as this satisfied, happy husk underneath Priyanka.
Excellent, thank you.
See Alois in an office, standing with a book open, and then another man enters and Alois. Good to see you. And I think we see that Alois has drawn some kind of symbol in the book that he's reading, and he closes it and puts it back on the shelf. Says, yeah, hi. Just because, you know, the two of us are up for the same position, we shouldn't, doesn't mean we can't remain friendly. And then in another scene, we see that same man in front of a lecture hall giving a talk. And we see Alois's hand like reach in underneath his coat and kind of clutch his mystical amulet. And the man starts, you know, coughing and has to excuse himself. And you know, maybe some other scene where there's just, you know, some social gathering of a bunch of professors, and you see the man is just, you know, become drawn and pale, and maybe like, you know, blood starts trickling out of his nose at one point. And he has to, you know, grab a handkerchief and try to sop it up, and it just keeps flowing.
Excellent, thank you.
I'm imagining a possible future with Lord Falkenberg. Where we have been defeated, and he has triumphed, and Lady Camila flies into a rage at her defeat, and I think I just see her pulling out that gun that she got from Bulstrode and beginning to mow people down indiscriminately until she's overwhelmed by what's his name, Andrew the Skullcracker, and strangled by Andrew the Skullcracker, but not before she's taken out all sorts of innocent people.
Excellent, thank you very much. Brilliant, thank you all. We probably don't have much time to get into the actual investigation tonight, but I don't think that's too much of a problem. As I said, it's both, I've kept the complexity of the questions for this one fairly short, and also you have quite a few mastermind clues left that you can bring in to answer these questions as well. So I think we should be okay for next time. Getting it done next time, but I will do sort of the initial introduction of the threat now, so we know where we're at for when we do come back. So the mastermind threat. There we go. So the next morning, when you have returned from your exploits, Darius will arrive at Hargrave House looking somewhat distressed, and he will kind of approach you and say, I do not know if you will believe me, but from what I know from Lucian, if anyone will, it is you. I would have dismissed it as fantasy, but I have seen things. Lucian's imagination, his creativity are what drew me to him, and his visions for a new future seemed hopelessly optimistic dreams. But he believes he can make it come true. And now I think I do too. He has created I do not know what to call it, a vortex to somewhere else, somewhere alien. He is convinced he can use the power of that place to create a new world, to sweep away the old. I know his intentions are good, but the cost. He speaks of a rebirth in flames, like a phoenix. He and his people, they are going to be in the Palace of Westminster to use its significance to anchor the power of his ritual. He has a small army, and I know not how many other supporters. But you must stop him, please. And so you will be able to conclude, sort of from what you already know of his involvement in some of the threats around London, if he has, well, you know that he has access to the Whately camera, and it is possible that he is in some way channeling the power of the fragrant void to work his ritual of remaking, which is a dangerous force to be reckoning with, for certain. So I'm going to ask you all a question each for this one. I'm going to paste those in the chat so that you can be having some initial thoughts about those. I'll come around to ask you those in a second. But I will just quickly go through the what the questions for this threat are. So there's an initial threshold question, which is, will Lucian's ritual be more vulnerable to disruption in the Palace of Westminster or in the Fragrant Void? That is a complexity 2 question. Obviously, which answer you choose there will determine whether sort of essentially your final confrontation will be taking place in the Palace of Westminster, where Houses of Parliament, or in the Fragrant Void itself. If you do pick the or if you do end up with the option that the best place to disrupt the ritual from is in the Fragrant Void, then basically all further investigation will take place in the Fragrant Void itself, and you won't be able to do any further investigation of that out in London proper. The 2 questions that result from that are, if you go for the Fragrant Void route, where must you travel to in the Fragrant Void, and what must you sacrifice to end the ritual? That's only a complexity of 2, but as I said, that does involve you being in the Fragrant Void, which is a dangerous option in and of itself. The other question is, what fatal flaw has Lucian left in his planning for the ritual, and how can you exploit it to get the drop on him? That is a complexity 4 question, and that will allow you to resolve the threat by gaining access to the Palace of Westminster and physically disrupting the ritual. So those are the approaches that you have available to you. I've put all of that in the threat tab as well, if you do want to check back up on those. But yeah, I will now go through and ask you those questions that I just put inside. So, Lady Camila, how do you know that Lucian's influence runs deep and that you cannot rely on any official support for your actions?
I think since the night of the exhibition, when Lucian revealed his vision, anyways, Lady Camila has been working behind the scenes and meeting with people. And I think we see a montage of her meeting all sorts of officials, politicians, military leaders in kind of more informal circumstances, trying to suss them out. And in each case, she is somehow mysteriously rebuffed. And she and her forehead furrows in each time as she comes to recognize the depth of Lucian's. She just thought he was a misguided nobleman, but now she realized that he's been laying the groundwork and has a vast network of influence that even she can't make a dent in. And she knows that the military, the politicians, the government will not, there are no official aspects of British society that she can turn to for support against him.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And Fujisawa, what signs have you witnessed that show that the boundary between the world and the fragrant void is the thinnest you've ever experienced?
I think in the introduction to the Waitley camera, we determined that the way you can tell a photo has been taken by the camera is that the subject's face continues to change based on their current emotion. And I think something similar to that effect has begun to spread to other images throughout London, not just ones that are tied to the camera itself. So we can see that even on the walls of Hargrave House, the paintings of former hunters have begun to change to show them as they are now. So their skins are cracked and sallow, their hair is stringy, they're looking ghastly and corpse-like. It's a very unnerving effect.
Excellent, thank you. And Priyanka, how can you feel the dark entities are poised to spread their influence on the world?
For days now, it feels like our prayers have gone unanswered. It feels as though the conduit to heaven has somehow been made more narrow. I can feel at the edge of my periphery the shadows lengthen every time I look away from them. And I can hear the whispers of those things that lurk in darkness, waiting to reach into the light. I have seen the way that the contaminations of these demons have wormed their way into the hearts of Londoners. I've seen the heightened emotions, the tense outbursts, the ways in which the people give in to their sins even more easily than they did before. I see the ways that the whispers of the night come to me even in the daylight now. And then as I was sitting there with my morning tea, trying to make sense of all of it, a letter arrived by post, and it bore the seal of the man who wears my uncle's face. And inside was a piece of paper that just said, "Play your part."
Excellent, thank you very much. And Professor, what do you see that demonstrates your order's influence on Lucian's ritual?
Yeah, I mean, that symbol that we saw Eloise write in his rival's book, the symbol on the mystic amulet, we see all that. And I think we also see the, I was looking through my notes to try to find it, but the book that was involved with the camera.
Yeah.
I know exactly what it was. Unfortunately, I don't have it in my notes, but that book and the bookseller, who's a member of his order, I think are both are both present.
Excellent. Thank you. That's brilliant. Thank you all. So that is where we are going to leave things for tonight. As I said, because I know that yes, I know you need to get off, and so there's no point in us pushing any further tonight. But yeah, we're in a good position, I think, to get through our kind of investigation and resolution next time. So thank you very much, everyone. It has been a great session as ever. I'm going to stop recording now. So thank you all.